I don't want to comment on that.
Well, and so he has 30 days. I think,
In my mind,
it's not easy.
I mean,
for as long as I was, that's always the big question. I expect personal attacks as the prosecutor. I expect not everybody's going to like me.
The threats are always indirect, he said. There is a guy in California who messages and says, "Looks like I have to come slash your tires."
And so I kind of expected it and didn't bug me.
That's why the plea to the media, please, if you receive those crime scene photos or autopsy photos or anything, forward those on. If you get any other crime scene photos or autopsy photos or anything, forward those on.
And that goes as far as showing the crime scene where, you know, there's two girls that are dead. I don't know. You
Please forward those on.
In this case, it was hard to get away with it. You know, my family wants to talk about it. My friends want to talk about it. Everybody wants to talk about it and wants to know what's going on. And so I expect not everybody's going to like me. My concern was taint that we had a hope of getting. In this case, it was hard to get away with it.
Now's the time to do that. And
one juror may have bought into or believed in the science of the ballistics.
I am the newly elected prosecutor here for Carroll County. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here today. This is an important occasion that we want to meet and talk about. As I say, we're here today to talk about the Abby Libby investigation and about just that investigation in general. I want to say that everyone appreciates you being here, and I'm thankful as well. As when I say everyone, I'm talking about unified command. That consists of local law enforcement, ISP, the FBI, and everyone else that's working diligently to try to solve this crime. I want to express all the hard work and dedication from all law enforcement officers that have been involved. They've taken time away from their family, from their lives in order to try to solve this case. And so I want to say that I appreciate everybody's work on this, not only the people standing behind me, but everybody involved. I've directed all law enforcement to review all requests with me, all public requests before a response is given, that they've got to meet with me, and we're going to meet as a group and give you an answer if we can, an answer that we can give you that doesn't compromise, again, the integrity of the case, and hopefully we can work together. Media is an important tool that we can use, an important tool that we want to use. Information is our main weapon here, and so any bit of information that someone has, they need to call in and give us. That could be the missing piece that we need to solve this thing. That could be the missing piece that we're waiting on that ties everything together. There are countless people working on this every day. We're still working on this case. I think about this case every day. There's just not enough I can say for all the work done by investigators and by the family. I don't want to end this without saying thank you to the families. Thank you for everything you've done. Right, and so I don't know that that's my role to tell the investigators how to investigate the case. I want to be more of a support to them. If we have a resource in my office that you can use, I want to make that available to them. I think investigators constantly relook at evidence every day. Is there something I miss? Is there something else I can do? So I think that's constantly going on, but in my opinion, it's not my place to give direction to the investigators on how to run the investigation. That I can't comment on.
Can you give me a ballpark?
No.
Superintendent, being here 2 years later,
Rich, no, I did not. And how this has affected me pales in comparison to how it's affected the family members, this community, and these incredible investigators that have committed, literally, have committed their lives to this. I'm confident it's not going to take that long. I think there are a lot of things happening in regards to the way in which we communicate, social media platforms, as human beings, in all that we do each and every day. Somebody knows who this murderer is. Somebody knows. It is not helpful. And as he said, forward us information, but don't do the analogy on your own, please.
the person you're looking for could be listening.
I'm sorry, I've got to take a stab at that. If you're watching, we're coming. If you're watching, we are coming. I mean,
Welcome, everybody. My name is Nicholas McClellan. I'm the Carroll County prosecutor. I want to thank the team behind me. This is the Homicide Task Force team that we've put together. Thank them and thank their families for being so understanding for the many nights they've worked away from their families, away from their children. But again, keep in mind, we are not going to talk about the evidence that we have in this case or about the charging information. We cannot. Those things have been sealed by the court. That will become evident to you at some point, and it will be released, but right now is not that day.
And do you think you acted alone?
Again, that's part of the investigation, so I'm not going to talk about those things. What I can say is that we have probable cause established by the court for his arrest, and he is in custody. He's being held currently without bond. Again, that gets into the evidence we have of the investigation, and I know from everybody it's frustrating. I know everybody, not only reporters, but the family, everybody wants to know more information. I understand it's frustrating, but my goal is to maintain the integrity of this case.
again, I appreciate the question, but we're getting into the timeline of events, and today's not the time to do that. Well, eventually you'll be able to see what led us to this day, but again, today's not that day. To include the reward, you mentioned that, Raphael, about the reward itself, and again, very premature for us to talk about that. There's still a tremendous amount of work to do.
We haven't closed the door on the investigation, and so that's why we keep the tip line and the tip email open. And so we're not presuming anything at this point, but we're going to continue to take tips, continue to take any information anybody has, and as we've done with all the information we've gathered, we're going to look at that and examine that and see where it leads us. Sure, it is unusual. We don't do it very often in all the cases that we handle here in Carroll County. We did it in this case because the investigation is still open. And while all cases are important, the nature of this case has some extra scrutiny with it. And so my office, felt it was important to seal those records. But for now, to me, it's about protecting the integrity of this case. I want to have an opportunity at some point to have an opportunity in court to explain the evidence and for that not to be tarnished or tainted or anything like that. Again, he's presumed innocent. And so it was important for me in this case to do that. We're not going to comment on that right now as part of the investigation. Again, we just encourage everybody to continue to call in tips if they have them about anybody, and we'll examine those tips.
For me, that's normal. Obviously, a lot quieter, not as much security.
Inside the Carroll County Courthouse, it's much more quiet than it was for the fourth quarter of 2024, when a case was thrust into the national spotlight.
For me, I just tried to block it out as much as I could and focus on, okay, what do we want to present at trial and what are the facts that we can prove? What it is. It's an idea of what you thought happened. And so I don't have a problem with people throwing that word around, but where's the evidence to back it up? The amount of information that was involved was more than I'd ever dealt with as well. And so it just took a lot of organization and making sure that each day we had planned out what we hoped to accomplish that day in trial. And then, logistically organizing to make sure the witnesses were there. We had exhibits copied. Of course, you're under more scrutiny when it's a case that has as much publicity as this case did, and you have this sense of obligation that you want to do the best you can and make sure that you're completely prepared. And so, you have that extra pressure, but in terms of preparation, you kind of just go through the same routine that you would with any trial. I do think, as being a defense attorney, it gives me that unique experience to kind of view things from the other side. So when you start to think about what strategies the defense will have or what defenses they'll put forward, I think it gives me a unique perspective that I've been on that side. But I think prosecutors who have been career prosecutors have those experiences too that give them that, that advantage. So I think it's just your experience in general that gives you the knowledge and the wherewithal to say, okay, what order am I going to put the witnesses in? What exhibits are we going to produce to the court? I think so. It's very much a group effort. It wasn't one person making the decision. You try to block it all out and try to focus, like you said, just on the facts of the case, because what happens on a YouTube true crime channel or through the media, that doesn't really affect the case. You've got to focus on the evidence that you have and the facts of the case, and so you try to block it out. Now, it's impossible to block it all out, especially when it's in your face, when you're leaving the courthouse. I think some of the community members it got to them because just so many people bad-mouthing Delphi as a whole in Carroll County and unjustly doing that. But for me, I just tried to block it out as much as I could and focus on, okay, what do we want to present at trial and what are the facts that we can prove? I guess that's kind of a two-part question. For the pretrial phase, my concern was that we were going to taint any kind of jury pool that we had a hope of getting. And so that was my biggest concern, that we're not going to be able to get a jury pool that hasn't heard about this case or hasn't formed an opinion, because there was so much outside noise coming in and so many podcasts and YouTube channels and all these different things who were reporting on it. And so pre-trial, that was my main concern. It didn't really affect me in terms of preparing for the case, but when selecting a jury, I was of the concern of, okay, are we really going to be able to get a jury that hasn't formed an opinion about this case already based on something they've seen in the outside world? And I've never dealt with a case that has much publicity as this, so there's a legitimate concern in this case. When you get to trial, again, I really didn't have a concern because the jury was sequestered, and so I felt pretty confident that they weren't getting all that outside noise. When we get to trial, my biggest concern was the safety of witnesses we had coming in and out of the courthouse, the safety of the family coming in and out of the courthouse, and just then the safety of the officers working the courthouse and the grounds around the courthouse, because my concern was that a YouTuber, podcaster, or somebody else was going to fuel the fire for somebody who would act on those emotions and do something drastic, either intentionally mess up the trial, say something when they're in the audience, cause a ruckus in the courthouse, put the officers in danger, put witnesses in danger. So those are my concerns with kind of the outside publicity, not so much with the facts of the case.
Do you feel Richard Allen had a fair trial?
Yes.
How do you feel in terms of the sequestering process with the jury? You think it went smoothly, or how difficult was it for your team to cultivate that jury?
Well, we didn't have anything, we didn't have any responsibility with having them sequestered. That was all on the staff from Allen County. I think they did a great job because they didn't allow the jury to be contacted by outside sources, and they took all those necessary steps, so I think they did a great job. Once we started the trial, we didn't have any concern about them being sequestered. We trusted that the Allen County staff was going to take care of that, and again, we just focused on what we had to present. And so that's what we did. And you oftentimes have to make that decision in the fly. Is it going to help me or is it going to hurt me? And so in my mind, I would like to think it was just the totality of the circumstances, the totality of all the evidence that we had. And so I don't know if there was one specific thing. And again, you have 12 individuals who all have different life experiences and think differently. So what may have been the deciding factor for one juror may not have been the deciding factor for the other. One juror may have bought into or believed in the science of the ballistics. One juror may have said, okay, the timeline is what I hung my hat on. One juror may have said the confessions. In my mind, it was just a totality of everything that led to the conviction. But tell them what they think or tell them what they should have hung their hat on. I've said this before, and I'll stick to it. It's okay if you want to use the word theory, but you got to back it up with evidence. And if you want that theory to become a truth, you got to have evidence to back it up. And we live and die by the burden of proof of beyond a reasonable doubt. And so if you can prove a theory beyond a reasonable doubt, then to me it becomes a truth in the court of law.
There's been so much time where neither side had an opportunity to say much. It was under the gag order, obviously, for quite some time. What to you did the gag order mean?
Gag order to me was just a reiteration or a re-emphasis on the rules of professional conduct that we're bound by. And that is that you should not put out anything in the public that's going to try to taint the jury or elicit a response from the public. And we're bound by those rules. And the gag order is just an emphasis of that to say, don't talk about this case in the public. I wanted to be able to get 12 people who didn't form an opinion about this case, were unbiased, so that we could have a fair trial, not only for the state, but for Richard Allen.
And you felt like you got that?
Yes. Is there a better safeguard? If there is, I don't know what it is. That it's all about how many people can I get to tune in, or how many clicks can I get? How many followers can I get? And we'll do any means possible to get those followers, to get another follower, or to increase that number. There are days you get overwhelmed, but you just have to, organize it in a way where you're just accomplishing one task at a time and try not to get overwhelmed. But there definitely are days that you get overwhelmed and think, I have so much to do. I don't know how I'm going to do all this. Obviously, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of time away from family and friends, a lot of missed family events, and you just have to sacrifice that to put the work in that's necessary for the case. And so, I don't know. I've never done a trial with cameras in the courtroom, so I can't really answer that question. I don't know. Yeah, I think so, especially with a murder charge and the fact that the sentence was what it was. We expected it. And so, yeah, that's something we're ready for. The Attorney General's office will represent the state of Indiana, and the Attorney General will appoint probably 1 or 2 attorneys to handle the appeal. Our role at that point, myself, Stacey Diener, James Letcherill, becomes more of a supportive role. What information you need, let us help you get it. We know where that's at because we're the people in the courtroom trying it, and they're not. Something was done wrong, and it has to be retried.
Yeah.
Do we try it again? Absolutely. Though all those law enforcement officers, praise is I'm getting. That's a fact. You want to do the best you can and make sure that you're completely prepared. Just in this case, lengthwise, it's going to be longer. And so I just tackled it that way. I think just your experience in general and all those kind of things gives me that unique experience. When you start to think about that, gives you the knowledge and the wherewithal to say, okay, in this situation, this is the first time I had worked.
Can we all just have a little bit of a sigh of relief that this thing is over finally? I hope that they can take this sigh of relief with me. A few of the things I am going to say are going to echo what Mike Patty said, but I'd be remiss if I didn't thank some people. They were attacked by members on the internet for their integrity. They were called corrupt. They were called evil. And they were called liars. And did what they could to be a shield for the families. Spent countless hours chasing down leaks, countless hours attempting to scrub the internet, and countless hours trying to protect the family as best as it could. Thank you. We would not be here today if it were not for your efforts and your countless hours that you sacrificed away from your family and your friends. There is no way I could have tried this case. We spent countless hours working on this case, away from our families, away from our friends. I want to thank Kathy Shank. She kept us well fed. She was the grandmother of our office, if you will. She made sure that whatever we needed, she took care of, and she never complained. And without her, we would not be here. Without her countless hours of going over filings, of scanning in documents, of looking at reports, and having the wherewithal to bring this to the attention of Sheriff Liggett, to say, hey, I haven't seen this before. Has anybody followed up with this person? Without her, we would not be here. Without her, we would not have an arrest, a conviction, and a sentence. She was the key part to this investigation. The needle in the haystack, if you will, that brought this investigation to a close to where we could make an arrest. Kathy Shank, I thank you. The allegations against you, against your family members, and I know there may be times you doubted, having the wherewithal to know that something wasn't right. Arguably the biggest piece of evidence that we had. I want to say we're very happy with the jury's verdict. We're elated with the judge's ruling. The sentence is appropriate, as Judge Gull stated. But I will leave you this word of caution. Please, as Superintendent Carter said, and more may be out there in the future. So please, if you get those, forward those on. If you get any other crime scene photos or autopsy photos or anything, forward those on. Those times when I said you had to abide by the gag order, the allegations against you, against your family members, and without your victim impact statements. I'll end with this. I want to thank the media for keeping this case in the forefront, for keeping the tips coming in for us to investigate. Please, if you receive those crime scene photos or autopsy photos or anything, forward those on. I want to thank the community finally, everything that everybody's done throughout this course. And I knew coming into that office that this case and all the support I had throughout that time, I appreciate it. The gag order is lifted. You're more than welcome to talk to anybody up here individually afterwards if they want to talk to you. A lot of it was, hey, try not to read that stuff that you see on the internet, which is easier said than done. We can't violate the gag order. Let's keep our eye on the ball. We need to get the trial, and we want to try to get the conviction, and then we can talk. I feel confident in the verdict and the sentence. Well, at this point, we don't believe any other actors are involved. We don't have any evidence to support that. If evidence comes out in the future to support that, we'll obviously investigate that. We're not going to say, hey, no, we got the conviction. We're not listening to what you have to say. But at this point, we have no other evidence showing that any other actors were involved. To show that the people standing behind me weren't liars, weren't corrupt. You know, those hate mails and hate messages continue to come in from some podcasters, some YouTubers. We conducted a clean investigation. We presented the evidence as best we could. Who is all the other men? I may not use that word cleared, but what I can tell you is we don't have any other evidence that ties them to the offense at this time. What I said, I hope it's a sigh of relief that this portion is over. I hope that is a sigh of relief for them. I'm not going to concede that, no. Go ahead.
The judge spoke today to the defendant's conduct, specifically him rolling his eyes throughout
Sure.
the trial. Your take from your down, he was acting.
It's hard for me to see him because just the lack of remorse and the lack of regret, the lack of emotion, when I see those things, and kind of struck me. Oh gosh, I don't know what did it for the jury. I think it was a culmination of everything that we had. I think once you start stacking that evidence against him, and as it stacks up, it's hard to say that the defendant isn't Bridge Guy. And if you can accept that he's Bridge Guy, you can accept that he's the killer. And that to me is the bottom line. And so, but then I came back, and so this has always been my hometown. It's been my hometown for 3 generations or 4 generations in my family. Those are true statements. This is a traditional, small, Midwestern town.
7 letters prolonged the investigation into the person responsible for killing Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Written in red on a tip sheet with information on tip number 74 was the word cleared. It wasn't misfiled, it wasn't lost, because Allen's name was entered as Richard Allen Whiteman in the tip database. The reason we didn't find it was because on the tip, someone wrote cleared. So we put it in the file that it was cleared. In 2021, we had a meeting with all law enforcement and said, let's go back and review every tip and see if we missed something. Kathy had the wherewithal to read the tip and say, hey, this guy was on the trail that day. I've never read a tip with the name Richard Allen. This is important. If there is a hero in the part of the story, it is Kathy Shank and Tony Liggett. No one knows who cleared Allen's tip in 2017. We don't know to this day who wrote cleared. The tip that was entered had cleared written in red on it. He said, it doesn't matter what his name was filed under. The point is someone wrote cleared on the tip. I've heard a lot of podcasts where they blame Dan Doolin, and Dan Doolin is a good officer. He is thorough. He's a good officer. I don't think we should focus on blame. We should focus on Kathy having the wherewithal to bring it to the law enforcement. Shank, he said, spent 8 to 15 hours a day volunteering her time because she loves the community of Delphi and she wanted to help. The only thing she is missing is an S on her chest for Superman because she is a hero, he said. Obviously, the tip being overlooked for 5 years is huge and unfortunate, he said. It's not huge for trying the case, but it's a huge thing for the family. We had to go an additional 5 years. That's a big deal. And we can't blame anyone because we don't know who wrote cleared on the tip sheet. This is not under duress, and these confessions are legitimate, at least in my mind. I would sit back and say, if you only knew the whole story. Carroll County is known for being a tight-knit community where neighbors help neighbors. It is also not unusual for familial connections as generations continue to reside in the area. McClellan said he never let those connections cloud his judgment. The threats are always indirect, he said. There is a guy in California who messages and says, looks like I have to come slash your tires. If there was any evidence, McClellan says, he was surprised by during the 17-day trial, it was when the defense's digital expert, Stacey Eldridge, a former FBI forensic examiner and certified mobile device examiner, testified that something was inserted into Libby's cell phone headphone jack at approximately 5:45 p.m., February 13, 2017, and removed at 10:32 p.m. the same evening. Did the state expect that testimony? No, McClellan said. The defense did a good job of hiding what they were going to use in court. When I heard it, I thought, that doesn't make sense. We saw it in the log, but again, it didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. We gave those logs to the defense, so we knew it was there. I did not know their expert was going to give that explanation, so that caught me by surprise. I believe the defense thought that this was the reasonable doubt they needed. Whether the jury agreed or not, they didn't buy into it. McClellan said with everything the state knew, common sense told them it was not possible someone physically plugged in a set of headphones in the port of Libby's phone and removed it at the time the defense indicated. It was not until crime scene investigators moved Abby's body to process the scene that they found Libby's phone under a shoe under Abby's body. During the trial, McClellan said Allen confessed to a key piece of evidence that only the killer would know. That information, he said, came in from one Allen's confession to his Indiana Department of Corrections psychologist, Dr. Monica Walla. McClellan said information about the van was learned when the state acquired access to Allen's mental health and medical records from the IDOC. Walla testified in court that she had followed Allen's case before and after he became her patient.
The Olympic somersaults and leaps of logic that we've seen even in the last week or two that people have made in order to fit Rick, make Rick the guy. He's not the f***ing guy.
I mean, they had people out here in my woods that night they were looking for all over that place. Just didn't find him. Now, why did you not find the van?
Yeah, I find that surprising too.
And if that is a guy, with hundreds of people in my woods and walking up down the creek, tromping all over everything, what are you going to find?
Right.
Destroyed stuff.
Who found him?
Huh?
Who found him?
The neighbor over here, Scott Brown.
Causing sleuthers to question why his vehicle was so close to the bodies on the morning of the 14th. He is a lifelong Delphi resident and has known Mike Patty since high school. According to a Facebook message from his daughter, who is around Kelsey's age, the Brown and Patty families may even be related by marriage. Regardless, though, Pat Brown is clearly a member of the family. His story of finding the bodies suspiciously mirrors and morphs in conjunction with the Patty narrative, which I think is why he was one of only 2 searchers to testify at Allen's trial. The identification of his vehicle on the scanner audio, coupled with the chopper footage clearly showing his orange truck just 800 feet from the bodies on the morning of the 14th, put him in a rather precarious position, which is why, in my opinion, he was designated by the Patties to be the person who found the bodies in the official narrative. I played that audio clip of Ron Logan because he said a couple things that I really need you to sit with. No, not that he believed the family to be involved. That's obvious. We've been knowing that for years. But he emphasized the fact that there were hundreds of people searching those woods, tromping all over the place, as he put it.
You know, you got to remember, you had 400 or 500 people that started looking for these girls the night before. So you know, we had to deal with that.
The crime scene encompassed a very large area, and its integrity had been violated by the pure magnitude of the search to find the missing girls.
Why nobody found the bodies, and I'm not buying the excuse that the girls were partially concealed. First of all, the area where they were found is wide open, and there were no foliage on the trees. Moreover, heat-seeking drones did not detect the girls. Eric Williams, the only civilian to ever come forward publicly about his experience searching for the girls, said that he and Carrie's brother searched the area where they were found, and he swears the girls were not there. He also said he saw tracks going from the creek to a house up on the hill, as well as piles of animal skulls and bones.
Have all kinds of drug problems and all kinds of crap from this. This will draw every deviant in the world to it.
The evidence is clear that they weren't there during the official hours of the search. Here is what Doug Carter said when asked why they weren't found.
With so many people looking for them that first night, why weren't they found?
I think I'll leave that question unanswered.
So at that point in time, without anybody telling us anything, you could put two and two together.
According to his testimony, Pat Brown helped in the search on the night of the 13th. Brown lives about 1.5 miles up the road from Ron Logan and the cemetery. Brown woke up on the morning of the 14th and called off work to continue helping with the search. He went to the Stonehouse restaurant with his neighbor, Tom Mears, and Tom's father, Keith Mears, where the men were drinking coffee before heading to the firehouse to aid in the search. That Deer Creek is not your average creek. It is extremely prone to flooding and is known to have very dangerous, even deadly currents, especially on the dates in question in February 2017, primarily due to a period of rapid snowmelt.
Tone down the rhetoric. We cannot allow evil to prevail. Good prevails over evil, not the other way around, and we can't let that happen. This county of Carroll and all that has happened here and all of the sadness associated with this county is unacceptable in a civilized society. Tone down the rhetoric. We can't allow this kind of evil to live amongst us. It's the totality of evil in my career, because I refuse to accept evil as a standard bearer in American society, not here. Carroll County, and specifically the Delphi, is that represented evil, complete evil amongst humanity. Tone down the rhetoric. Wake up and I realize my phone might have rang, but everybody's okay. But is today the day in Delphi? Is today the day in Flora? I just want the family to know that when I take my last breath on this earth, I'll be thinking of them. I'm good and pissed off, frankly, for all the reasons we've already talked about. And my soul's getting eaten from the inside out. Tone down the rhetoric. We face head on a complete planet that's out of balance right now. And the vitriol and the negativity associated with every single thing we do. And it just breaks my heart, whether it's race, whether it's white or black or Asian or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. It seems that if we don't agree, we hate each other, and I don't hate anybody for trying to help us. Stop all the politics and all the nonsense and all the conspiracy theories. This case is unlike any that I've seen in almost a 40-year career. So there are so many different tentacles to this. It's very complex. Any notion of any connection to anything else is not correct. There are so many different tentacles to this. All the nonsense and all the conspiracy theories. I don't ever remember anything like this in my I've been in this business 35 years, and I don't remember the totality of this is different. I've never seen anything like this in my entire career. All the nonsense and all the conspiracy theories.
If all of the discussion and innuendo and rumor and all of those things continue, this continues to draw attention. And I want that to happen.
We owe the community, we owe the family, we owe the state and literally the nation an explanation as to what happened. Justice in this country was served, and if you don't like justice in this country, go to another one. That's any county in America. And I have this extraordinary responsibility to bring closure to that. And I'll work towards that end until my final day. And understand that we all tried the best we could. We're not stopping. My resolve to catch him is as strong now as it was day one. But the difference now between now and day one is we know about you. A lot about you. Today could be the day. Sleep well. We all tried the best we could.
What it is it's setting up a Brady versus Maryland argument. So let me just give you the quick rundown on Brady versus Maryland. It's a U.S. Supreme Court case that says that the state has an obligation under the Due Process Clause of the Constitution to hand over exculpatory evidence to the defense. This is grounded in the fact that prosecutors are representatives of the public. They're not just there to win cases at all costs. They're there to do justice because they do it in our names. So they have a special responsibility to make sure that they're getting the right result in the legal process. So when they don't do that, that's a problem. It's a due process problem. It's an ethical problem. It's prosecutorial misconduct is what it is. Prosecutorial misconduct is all too common. And it's, something that should be unacceptable, and yet it's something that you almost never see prosecutors suffer real consequences for. They get, not so much as wrist slapped, and they move on with their careers. That's gonna kind of be a little warning shot to Mr. McClelland. Don't try to act like you didn't get these letters. You better not pretend you didn't get them. Giving details about the crime, third-party suspect evidence, yeah. It's definitely exculpatory. It's going to meet that standard under Brady. Pretty strong case that the defense is making here for some pretty serious misconduct by the prosecuting attorney. And I don't know how he's going to try to get around it. I really don't.
I'm a monster, spreading hate, stealing time. I'm a monster, laying base when it's cloudy. Oh, pilgrim inside of me. Tell me, what's my remedy? I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psychopath, don't love me.
Well, I guess I'm confident we're going to solve this case. So I'm confident that if he's listening in or she's listening in or whoever it is, that at some point I'll be sitting across from you in the courtroom. And so about all I can say about it, but I'm confident we're going to resolve this case. I'm confident we're going to get an arrest, and I'm confident we're going to solve it. So
I'm sorry, I've got to take a stab at that. Look what's happened in this community because of these tragic events. I mean, the unity and the unification and what's actually coming of this and the positivity associated with human interaction is really something to watch. I hope that I...
I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psychopath, don't love me. When you're lost, take your trust. Yeah, that's me. Oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. Yes, I'm a fraud. Call me a liar. A true psychopath.
I mean, the
taint. in my mind, the pretrial phase, my concern was that we were going to taint any kind of jury pool that we had a hope of getting. And so that was my taint.
I'll end with this.
Help us to capture the person responsible for these murders.